to My Shitty Podcast, So Shitty It Only Has One T. I'm your host, Adam Copeland. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. And most importantly, thanks for telling your friends. I also want to thank my guest, Sam, for coming on, telling us about what he does for a living. I also want to encourage you to go follow him on Instagram. I have those hyperlinks below. Stinson Bees is his other account, which I highly recommend you checking out if you're into bees. And it's also got the links to his app that we talked about briefly on the show. Really hope you guys are inspired to keep bees. It's an important thing to do. So yeah, without further ado, let's let the cat out of the bag. Test 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. All right, man. I did not think this was going to happen, by the way. And I'm the host. I'm the one that's supposed to schedule this thing and keep it going.
That's all good, man. I'm glad we made it.
Do you need to take that?
No, all good. I already missed it.
Why don't we start with just like introduce yourself and tell us what you do for a living.
Sure, no worries. First of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's the first time I'm getting these things done. So I'm not that famous yet.
After this show premieres, then
I'll probably gonna see the Instagram requests and everything going up.
yeah.
But anyways, I'm a database engineer. So mainly, I did sit on the computer whole day, 8 hours a day. I came from Australia, I would say 7 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I moved to United States to join the family. And then I had the bees back there in Sydney. And then I decided to do the same thing over in the United States.
Yeah. So you keep bees. That's what I'm mostly interested in and want to talk to you about. We can talk about your regular job also. But bees specifically. So let's get into bees a little bit. How did you get started? What was the first thing that tweaked your interest? Because most people have like a phobia of bees or they don't like bees. So what got you started? How old were you?
Honey is my kind of golden liquor. But no, I started it back in Sydney. So when I was studying in Sydney, I was working in the farm as well. Like, student kind of lifestyle. You have to work and then study at the same time.
Yeah.
So basically, I was working with a Lebanese guy. So he taught me everything about bees. And then right before pandemic, where everybody started losing their job, I started thinking maybe I can. Luckily I did. But right before pandemic, I had more time because I started working from home and we kind of got locked down. So I started put the bees on my backyard. So I started with two colonies on I think April 2020. And then I start working on them. And then the year after turns to 6. But right now I've got around 150 colonies.
Wow, that's amazing.
Crazy progress.
Yeah, that is. That's amazing. I've got a beehive, but I haven't started my bees yet. I was told by a work comrade of mine that I could just rub. What was it? It was essential oil. It was, I think, lemongrass.
Lemongrass, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, to attract them to catch the swarms. You're right.
Yes. So he said, put lemongrass in your hive and they'll just come in. So a year later, I have no bees. There's lemongrass on my hive. I've attracted 0 bees. So I'm going to have to buy bees. How did you get bees?
There's a few differences. In order to answer your question, I forgot. So basically, the main purpose that I keep bees is to help environment. We really need them. They're amazing. And, at the end of the day, when I'm out of my regular work, I go to my apiary and start, watching them sitting next to the hives and see their basically lifestyle and progress and stuff that they do. So you kind of, it's a really, really rewarding activity, I would say. So, at the same time, you help environment, you help ecosystem.
Sam? Uh-oh, I lost you for a second. Let's start back with, you were talking about you were keeping bees for the environment. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to see them. That's also why I want to keep them as well. Not necessarily for profit or for beeswax or for honey. I just kind of want to help. I just want to help the bees a little bit. So I'm sorry, our recording cut out. Either my internet wasn't stable enough or something.
Okay.
The stars didn't align.
Yeah, so it's a really good kind of activity. So while you're doing that, so it's just kind of, I was saying it's such a rewarding activity. When you open the hive, when you inspect the colony, you see their lifestyle, the way that they clean each other, treat each other, communicate with each other, and things like that. It's really, really important. So rewarding. And of course, at the same time, if you live in the right and nice place with a lot of, honey flows and everything, you get the good honey out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What would you? What's the first step if you want to keep bees? What do you need to do?
It's pretty straightforward. There's a few different ways, basically, to have bees in your backyard. So you can catch the swarms, as I mentioned. So you basically put the empty hives in your backyard and put some lemongrass, which is similar to to attract some bees. You can catch the swarms, which is the best way of having bees because genetically they already pass all the checkpoints and everything, so they went through all the different steps of creating queens and everything, and then get mated properly and everything. But the other way to do that, you actually can buy a package or nukes, which is nuclear of the bees, which is usually 5 pounds of bees, including queens, larvae, drones, workers, and everything.
Yeah.
And then you simply transfer them from one place to another, and then wait for a few months to see what will happen.
Yeah, that's, I think, what a lot of people don't realize. You can buy a couple of pounds of bees, and they'll come in the mail. You just have to kind of let your post office. You have to tell your post office, hey, there's some bees that are going to show up.
Oh yeah, be careful. Yeah, cover your face. You actually have to go and pick them up. That's a big responsibility for UPS to send you the whole package. But UPS usually only send the queens. So if you purchase a queen from Beekeeper, they actually put it in the special places called queen cage.
Yes.
Which is quite secure, and it's not easy for them to come out.
Yeah. Are those the ones with it's the queen cage has the little candy on the end, the little
exactly,
candy cork?
Right. Yeah, sugar candy, right? You know all about all the secrets, mate.
Hey, I bought a beekeeping book because I wanted to educate myself before, spending a couple $100 on bees, because it can be an investment. The hive, I think my hive was like it was around $150. And then bees can be I think like anywhere from $300 to $500, depending on the size of
something between $150 to $200.
Oh, okay. See,
more. It really depends of the queen's genetics. But the thing is, I'm actually designing an applications for people to actually educate themselves about the whole concept and learn how to do the basic beekeeping and everything. So keep it in mind. So I'm gonna post it to you later on when I build it up. I'm actually designing it right now.
Great.
So it's gonna be. Yep.
Is there a link that people can click on? I can.
It's the application name is actually BeeTrack. So I would say in a month or two, I'm gonna post it in the Apple Store so you can go and download it for free.
Oh, cool, man! That's awesome. I'll include your. Do you have an Instagram? I didn't even check. I'll include your Instagram. Go ahead.
I can Stinsonbees. Stinsonbees is the actual Instagram name.
Okay, I'll include.
So SONB Stinson.
Okay, I'll include that in the show notes, and so people can click on that and get to the link in the bio or however you want to set it up. Awesome, man. That's really cool.
Thank you.
I'll take advantage of that program.
Trust me, a lot of people will do.
Yeah. Do you need to take a class? Is this something that you like? Do you recommend people take a class and handle bees before making the investment? Or do you think that you can, if you're passionate about it, you can, I don't know.
The best way, my best friends are YouTube and Google. So you can get a lot of information, to be honest with you. What I personally do, I actually have Saturdays and Sunday classes for people around Bay Area, San Francisco area. They actually come and pay, and although all the profit goes to charity, but yeah, so they come and learn about the beekeeping, basics, pretty much everything I know, I tell them. But in general, I mean, there's a lot of resources in YouTube and Google's and different websites. There's a gentleman, I'm not sure if I can tell his name or not. I think he's Mr. Oliver, Randy Oliver, if I'm not mistaken. Randy Oliver. Yeah, it's called Scientific Beekeeping. Randy Oliver. So he's got a really, really amazing website with a lot of detail, basic beekeeping, all the way to professional beekeeping, how to treat the mites and diseases and everything. So check it out.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah. Do you have any trouble with mites or beetles? I know that those can be threats to a hive.
Unfortunately, the thing is, I lost 60 hives this year because of the mite disease, or the actual mite threats. So the mite is the biggest threat for honeybees colonies in the whole world, except Australia. The only place that hasn't been seen is Australia. So Australia don't have any mites. But the thing is, yeah. So unfortunately, it's something that we have to deal with, and there's no any proper solution. So they will damage the honeybees, and also they also bring different diseases inside the colony. But if I want to give you more details about the whole concept for people who's listening, basically the reason what attract mites is combination of proteins and fat that actually sits on the bee's body. So when you see that shininess on the bee, basically body, that calls something lipoprotein. So a lot of people think mites will actually drink bees' blood, but there is no any blood. So what they actually get attracted lipoprotein, and then they stick to the bee body, and then they come inside the colonies, come inside the hives, and they will get that inside the larvae. And then the mite goes inside the cells or combs, and then they reproduce, and then they take over the whole colony. But yeah, so I have a lot of difficulties. I spend a lot of money, spend a lot of times to treat them, but you have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's right. There's every 11 years, there is a moth swarm that comes through Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'm worried about that. I found out that moths are a natural predator to bees. So luckily we just had it. So I've got another 10 years before I have to worry about that again. But I'm really excited to get started. Just to, like what we were talking about earlier, just to kind of help the environment.
You're right. But in terms of mite control, there's a lot of chemicals. A lot of people are against using chemical. And also at the same time, a lot of people use oxalic acid, which is organic products. But again, some people don't even like to use chemical, and they just let their bee handle that.
Do you have to? I've seen a couple of setups where, what is your take on? I've seen people that make like a simple syrup, like a sugar water to put outside of the colony to help the bees while they're sort of getting settled in. Do you use that at all, or do you need to?
Well, it really depends. This subject is quite. It's quite, I would say, difficult to talk about.
Okay.
It's using it, to be honest with you, for bees, we don't supposed to use any syrup.
Yes.
They have to fly around and collect foods and nectars and pollens and everything. Technically, we don't supposed to do that. But considering the whole global warming and environment change, or the climate change and everything, it's actually quite beneficial for your colony to have some sort of food source for different reasons. One of the reasons, obviously they're not going to starve, and they would be able to actually develop, more larvae inside and then look after them. So it really depends. If you're in a really good area with a lot of flowers, a lot of nectar, a lot of rain, some, places like Oregon or Seattle, you don't really need to feed them. But again, it's really depend to the hive that you have in one location. Basically, right now in Northern California, you have to feed them, otherwise they're going to starve.
Yeah.
especially if you have more than 16 colonies in one location.
Sure.
So that's why when you see a lot of colonies around your areas or around the country, you see a lot of yellow bottles on top of them, because all the beekeeper will feed their colonies in order to keep them going.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, and she makes like bee tea is what she calls it. She'll take wildflowers from around, and instead of
Right.
just adding water and sugar, she makes a tea with she has got a special blend, and I'm doing her a disservice because I forget what all she puts in there, but she really cares for her bees, and she puts all these herbs, these helpful herbs, alfalfa, I believe, and some other
Right.
things in there along with the syrup, so they're not just getting sugar water, they're getting like a flower tea with their food. And I imagine
Sure.
in New Mexico, where it's a large portion of the state is desert. Luckily
Yeah.
I live in the mountains, so I've got some trees and some vegetation, but which I hope will help. But I imagine I'm going to be making some flower tea.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there is a new research. A lot of scientists believe these days having a bees in the urban areas is way more beneficial, because people plant on their backyards, on their houses. So there's more food for bees rather than having bees in the countrysides, because all the cows and cows and everything eats everything, and there's nothing left over for bees to fly on.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Are we all gonna die if the bees? if the
Well, eventually, yes, I would say that's why we're here. Yeah, if they die, they're gonna take us with them.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, man.
that's true, man. They pollinate everything. There's a huge amount of vegetation that the bees are responsible for, and if they're gone, then likewise for humanity.
Yeah, it's actually a big business in California. I mean, almond, as you know, almond is a huge thing in the United States, and our farmers spend over $450 million for pollination every year. So only just taking over the bees and their almond trees, and help them for more progress.
Yeah. How do you feel about people that ship their bees? That's for people that don't know, there are farmers that will pay you if you've got a hive to bring your bees, and you basically set them on the farm, and
I
they.
mean, there is nothing wrong with it. It's actually good things. I'm always open to that. But the thing is, I was actually reading an article. So a lot of beekeepers actually bring the bees from Florida to California. And the funny thing is, the bees that actually coming from Florida to California will not able to see the Florida again, because by the time they go back, they will die.
Yeah.
Because bees are, last for 4 to 6 weeks in the summer. But
For,
in general, it's a really good idea. I mean, if the farmers are open to do that.
I'm sorry, you said
Go ahead.
my internet cut out just a second. You said they only live 4 to 6 weeks?
Weeks.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and then by the time they go back to Florida, by the time the beekeepers will take the bees back to Florida, the existing one will die, so they won't be able to see the Florida again.
Yeah.
You get the concept?
I do. Yeah. by the time the hive goes back to Florida, it's a whole new set of bees, right? Yeah. And yeah, does it stress the hive out? I would imagine.
Not really.
Okay. Good.
Not necessarily. I mean, when you close the entrance, they kind of get stressed out a little bit. They get a little bit aggressive, because they really want to fly out and do the daily basis stuff. But in general, we smoke them, and when you smoke them, you basically calm them down or force them to be calmed down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And then,
That's right. How often do you get? We talk about aggression. From what I've learned, if it is kind of overcast, it's not necessarily sunny out, and it looks like it's going to storm, maybe a little windy, you're more likely to get stung in that type of weather as opposed to like sunny and summertime, kind of.
not necessarily. It doesn't
No?
really matter what time of the day.
Okay.
I mean, they don't really. Basically, bees don't care in general. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So, but the thing is, they don't really like the windy areas. So what happened is, usually they're more aggressive in the nighttime or when it gets dark, because they have that kind of mindset that attackers or birds or other animals will attack them during the nighttime to feed themselves. So they're a little bit more, according to my experience, they're a little bit more aggressive when you go and touch them, when it's dark. But in overall, whenever we want to inspect them, just smoke them. And then as soon as you smoke them, the aggressiveness will basically reduce to 20, more than like 8%.
That's great. Fantastic. Let's talk about equipment that you need if you're going to have a hive. Sam, are you still there? Shit. I think I just
talk about the smoking ideology. So what happened is when you smoke the bees, I mean, let me explain that. So there's few different ways that bees communicate with each other. So the main and most important or stronger one is by pheromone. So what happened is when somebody comes and open their hives and move the furniture and everything, they kind of sense that. So they produce the pheromone to tell others, attackers are here, let's attack them. So when you smoke them, they think there's a fire somewhere around, and that pheromone will get disabled. So what happens is instead of producing that pheromone, they will produce a different pheromone to let others to get organized. So that's the whole concept behind it. That's why we smoke them.
That's amazing. That's so insane.
It is crazy.
And the way that they communicate is insane also. So I want to talk about bees and try and educate people on how amazing these little creatures are. The pheromones right off the bat, smoking them so that they get organized. That's already amazing feat number one. If you wanted to, let's say, start a colony or to remove bees from a place where you didn't want them, all you have to do is capture the queen. And I say all you have to do like it's a simple feat. All you have to do is identify the queen, capture the queen, and they'll just follow it's almost as easy as that.
You're pretty much right. Yes. So the thing is, they actually can, again, going back to that pheromone ideology. So they actually sense the queen's pheromone.
Yes.
They're also able to recognize that they are queenless or colonies queenless or queen right, again, from sensing the queen's pheromones. So when there is no any queen, obviously there's no any pheromones, so they recognize they're queenless, and they actually will be able to make another queen from an existing egg.
Yes.
Fertilized egg. But in order to catch the swarms, basically you don't really need to catch the queen. Even if you shake them into a box, they all will fall down, and then the rest will actually follow the queens. But you're right. Yes. Correct.
I was about to say, and then tell me the part where I'm not right about that, but you got to it. So perfect, man. You're making this an easy interview for me. That's fantastic.
A lot of chatterbox, I could say.
That's great. Can you tell people what they would need if they wanted to start their own colony? Like you're going to need, and maybe this is a good time to redirect people to what you're working on.
Sure. Basically, according to my experience, the most important things that people need to have in order to have a really healthy colony is, first, have a good queen. I mean, genetically, with a high gene and great queen, high quality queens. Second thing is having a really, really amazing, great locations. So these two are really, really important. And the reason I'm saying that is when your queen is quite healthy and comes from a really good gene, they would be able to actually do the mite kind of resistance. They would be actually treat the mites and other diseases, Weber and the others. And the second thing is when you have a good location to have bees in your backyard, obviously they would have access to more food source, so they can collect more, they can bring it into the colony and feed the larva. But in general, it's really straightforward. It's not hard to do that. As just put your suits on, cover your face, cover your hands, and get it done. We really, really need these guys. And when you work with them, you kind of recognize how important they are for our environment and basically humans.
Someone has told me before that holding a handful of bees was like holding a pulsating heart. Like you really,
pretty much, you're right.
You really feel
there is a big article about that, actually, if you get the chance to read it.
Is that right? Cool. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I forget that they vibrate. I had been concerned. It gets a little cold here, so I've been concerned about heating my hive or keeping it warm in the winter. And that's
You
yeah.
don't
It's
really,
go
you don't
ahead.
really. These guys are so smart. The thing is, just to give more kind of make these podcasts more educational, the temperature, the internal temperature for colonies, something between 93 to 96 degrees. And they, when you have a healthy colony, they would be able to actually maintain that temperature, whole year. I mean, they do really amazing stuff that I actually see in my eyes. So, I mean, in Sacramento area, in the summertime, temperature might go up to 110 degrees. And what they do, I actually seen this activity. So they actually collect the water and keep it in a certain area on top of the colony and start winging in order to make the cool kind of air, like an AC,
Yeah,
kind of old-fashioned water ACs. I mean, they would be actually able to maintain the temperature,
I'm
over the time.
I'm so glad you went over that. That's one of the coolest things. Like they literally will work as an AC unit. They'll buzz their wings and and keep water on them so that they can cool the hive.
Right.
And
Cool
likewise,
idea.
in the winter they sort of vibrate and um, generate heat. Is that correct? Or
Well, yes, there is a special muscle right in the back of the bee. So it's like kind of triangle, kind of circle, combination of circle triangle muscle right in that after that hairy area. So that muscle produce the heat, and then they would be able to release the heat by shaking their body.
yeah,
So as soon as they shake their body, the heat will come out and actually goes to the larva and the surface of their frames. And there is a specific phrase they call cluster. So over the winter, the bees actually get together in terms of kind of round stuff, and they get into the cluster and they actually keep the area warm. So
it's,
they're super smart. I mean, it's intelligent.
it's so crazy, man. I'm so glad you went over that. See everybody, see how crazy bees are, how crazy, amazing, crazy smart. It's just fantastic. I don't know. I hope everybody is as excited as I am right now.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. A lot of people think bees are aggressive and they sting you without any reason. That's not the case. I
Yes.
mean, I actually have students in Saturday and Sundays. They come and they take their gloves off and they start petting the bees, and they don't get stung.
Yes.
I mean, to be honest with you, as more gentle you are with the bees, at the same time they will be gentle with you as well. Of course, if you go crazy aggressiveness to them and open the hives and put things in the sides and throw everything, they're gonna react. And I mean, it's not only bees that they do that. I mean, even if you go to somebody's houses and start moving things around, they definitely will react,
Yeah,
according to what you do.
exactly. Yeah, I think that's a common misconception that bees want to sting you or they're out to get you. They're looking for food constantly. They've got a different agenda altogether. They're super busy. They're constantly worried about the hive and keeping everybody happy. If they're out of the hive, then they are doing work to get back to the hive, to better the hive. Stinging you is the last thing on their mind. I was astonished to
Exactly
learn
right.
how many beekeepers who do this professionally, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, come out with about 4 stings a year. When I read that statistic, I was like, that's insane. People that handle bees all the time maybe get stung 4, 5, maybe a dozen times throughout the course of a year.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, because they already understand that if they get stung over and over and over, their body will react and they might get severe, allergy reaction later on. So they protect themselves as well at the same time, but they know bees will sting them for a reason.
Hmm.
If they stay gentle with them, they're not going to get stung,
That's right.
without any reason.
Yeah, and going back to the pheromones thing, if you were to, a lot of times they will sting you if you accidentally crush one. Like if you're moving a lid and you crush one,
Right.
the pheromones will be released, and you're more likely to get stung in that instance as opposed to handling them carefully, or like maybe if you're out casually and they land on your drink, to help
That's right. Yeah.
help them off with your hand would be more beneficial than to swat at them or something like that. Would you agree?
I wish that would be the case, but unfortunately, we don't have that many bees like before. So that wouldn't be the case anymore, that people, sit on the bees and get stung.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was 20 or 30 years ago, I would say so. But now these days, because of the number of the bees reductions and everything, I don't think that would be the case. I mean, a lot of people these days get stung with the yellow jacket and they consider them as a honeybee.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. I
Right.
mean,
And yellow jackets, they pollinate other things too, and that's a completely different
they're
podcast.
bastards. They're bastards.
Tell me why. Tell me why you think so.
The thing is, they don't really like, I mean, they're not coming over for pollens or nectars.
Yeah.
What attracts them more is protein.
Yeah.
So if you put meat on one side and let's say honey on the other side, they actually jump on the meat because they're nasty.
Yeah.
And they actually bring a lot of disease all over the place and transfer them from one place to another.
Oh, okay. So they're in charge of pollinating disease.
Pretty much I would say so, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
But
gosh.
honeybees only sits on the flowers, and they actually recognize that,
Yeah.
whether the area is clean or not.
And I know you're in California, so there's a lot of in the Bay Area. There's a lot of gardens and a lot of vegetation, farms. Do you personally keep a garden just to keep your bees happy, or is there enough around you?
To be honest with you, personally, I don't do that because I don't really believe that that's something we should do for bees, because the thing is, the bees will able to fly up to 5 miles to get access to the food source. The other thing is they would be actually able to communicate with each other. So when one bee finds food source, it goes back inside the hive and tell others where to go, where to find food. Personally, I don't really agree to do that, because no matter how much plant you put inside, they have limited food source.
Yeah.
I mean, a bee will fly up to like 150 miles, in 4 to 6 weeks, and they would be able to fly around.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's again for people who wants to keep the bees in the urban area or cities or in residential area, and obviously not apartments, but like kind of houses. That's a really great place for them to have bees, because they will fly around and they don't really need to plant some specific, variety of the vegetables to, for bees to be fed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in general, they really like lavenders or this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've been told to put my bees either to put a 6-foot radius around my hive, like a fenced area, or either to put them on my roof, so that there's a lot of bears where I live up in the mountains in Santa Fe, so I've been advised to either do the fence around with hot wired, like an electric fence, or put them on my roof. Do you think?
Well, bees prefer to stay actually in the heights, so somewhere higher than ground. They don't really like that. But in general, I mean, just wherever you can, just put them somewhere. You don't really need to have a specific location, as long as it's not windy.
Yeah.
Your bees will find. And also in the mountain areas, a lot of people actually use electric fence.
Mm-hmm.
So they put a little small area for the bees and put them inside, and nobody will go them. But in California, we have a lot of problems with the skunk and the raccoons, and especially when you feed your colony, skunks got fingers, so they actually go and grab the bottles or feeders, and then they start drinking it. So that's another problem.
I didn't even consider that yet. Oh
No.
my gosh. Sam, in tradition of the show, I always ask my guests what the shittiest part of their job is. Can you tell me like what the worst part about keeping bees is for you?
I would say getting stung. That would be the worst part.
That's kind of a no-brainer.
But again, if you cover yourself and smoke them or put your veils on, you're not going to get stung quite often.
That's great.
The other thing I can say, some people come and start asking a question, which I appreciate, asking a question about the bees, right in the middle of the apiary while you're holding the frames full of bees on your hands,
Yeah. This is not the time right now. Yeah.
That's not the time. You're right.
Fantastic. And then, Sam, we always, first off, before we get to this part, I want to give the platform to you so that you can get maybe a public service announcement that you want to tell anybody or cover a subject that we didn't get to. So I want to kind of pass the microphone to you. If there's anything like that you wanted to voice, this is definitely the time for it. And if not, you can pass it back to me and we'll pick it back up.
No, I definitely use the microphone at this time.
Okay.
So yeah, just want to tell people, I know it sounds a little bit scary and freaking, you might have a lot of concern about having bee in your backyard, but just get them done. We really need them. A lot of people don't recognize that, how important they are for our environment, for our ecosystems. Look at the planet. We need them. I mean, no matter where you go in the world, the climate's been changed. You really need to do something about it. And I think, as a human, that's the least we can do for our planet, to help environment, ecosystems. And it's a really, really nice hobby. I mean, you get a lot of, advantage, behind it and, out of it. And you will like it. And of course, you will have honey at the same time. But just it's not difficult. Get your bees done. Get them in your backyard. You will have fun. Learn, educate yourself. Do a lot of research, Google, YouTube. There's a lot of research out there. Just get your bees. Get your bees, humans.
And then
get them.
Tell me about, I know a lot of people have concern about taking the bees' food. They think that if you take the honey, you're taking the bees' food. What are your thoughts on that?
That's correct. That's a really good question, actually. So the thing is, a lot of people think bees making honey for us. That's not the case. So the honey that they make, which is combination of the pollens and nectar, is something for them to store for winter. So the thing is, bees are not able to fly. I mean, let's not consider the California winter, which wouldn't go below 35 degrees or 40 degrees. But in the areas like New York and Washington, East Coast, temperature might go below -10. So they actually store the food for themselves for the winter to eat. But again, because in California we live in such a nice, amazing kind of temperature environment, we would be able actually to extract the honey and take the honey out and give them sugar water. But keep that in mind. The honey that they make it's going to be stored for their own consumption over the winter. Is not something in addition for humans. But obviously we get advantage of that and we take it out and we basically use it.
Okay. What would you say is it okay for a vegan to eat honey, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I know whole the ideology behind that people become vegan, and they believe is animals or insects are in difficult times, or they kill them, but nobody kill the bees. What they do, they actually work for 4 to 6 weeks, to produce honey, look after the colony, and then nobody harmed them. I'm not going to kill them in order to make honey.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to chop their heads off
Yes.
to make honey. So they already will make honey. So it's really good for vegans to actually eat honey. It has got a lot of nutrition and a lot of proteins and a lot of enzymes and acids and everything. So it's pretty good for them, actually.
Beautiful. Excellent. Okay, and then Sam, the very last thing before I cut you loose. In tradition of the show, we always end with a poop story. Have you ever pooped your pants or had an accident? or a friend of yours? It doesn't necessarily have to be your story, but it's kind of a lighthearted way to end the podcast.
Oh yeah, of course. The problem, I didn't. I don't remember I did it myself, but I saw a lot of people doing that. So
Yeah.
The thing is, the smell comes first, and then the actual see goes second.
Yeah. Your senses are alerted, not by sight. It's usually.
No.
And it's
You're
been
right.
so. You're saying it's been so long you don't remember the last time you have.
I don't remember, but to be honest with you, if I want to give you an honest answer, yeah, of course I shit my pants. Definitely.
That's good.
Who
Fantastic.
doesn't? Who doesn't?
You know what? Every single person that's been on this podcast has basically told the poop story. And if it wasn't them, they're like, okay, mine's okay. I just did it, and it was an accident. I cleaned up. There was no big story. But let me tell you about my brother that did it. Or let me tell you about my coworker that did it. That's why I say it's either your story or someone else's.
I'm honest enough, man. I'm telling you, yeah, of course I shit my pants.
I believe you. I know. So you're right. Everybody's basically got a poop story. So excellent.
No.
Sam, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for hanging in there with the choppy internet. I'm glad that I was able to restart it and it sort of fixed itself. So thank you again. Like I said, I'll include a link either to your website or your Instagram in the show notes, so my listeners can just click on it really easily and get to you. And that's it for us. Play us out, Shitty Ukulele.